He is one of the founding members of the Explorer magazine because our Steyr 12M18 has been with us right from the very beginning. Reason enough to take an extensive tour through our editorial vehicle, especially after the big refit it's had over the last few months. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Alright, maybe that's a bit of a stretch. But for our Steyr, better known as Ursa Major, there's not much left as it once was. Formerly used as a cable trolley by the Austrian Army, the 12M18 from 1986 has been in service as an expedition vehicle since 2013. Thanks to the intercooler, the 6-cylinder turbo diesel with a 7-litre capacity now delivers around 200 HP, which means it has sufficient reserves to conquer the world off-road. By the way, the do-it-yourself cabin is from 2012 and has already completed a journey through South America, but on a VWLT. After adventures in Morocco and the Arctic Circle in Norway, we're getting ready for the next big tour back to South America. But before Ursa Major disappears on the freighter, Martin will give you an extensive tour of all the technical details and conversions in this first part.
The Steyr 12M18 is the trend chassis par excellence amongst the older used trucks. Naturally, the question I asked myself was, is it the right one for me? And, of course, permanent all-wheel drive, 3 diff locks, powerful gear reduction, big tires, disc brakes at the front and the rear. Naturally, these are big plus points. Obviously, it's not the lightest chassis. I also struggle with the 7.5 tons. I have to admit it is really challenging. But nevertheless, it's definitely one of the best off-road expedition vehicles that you can buy at the moment, if you can get your hands on one. I've had this vehicle since 2013 and have been tinkering around with it on and off since then. I've changed it a bit as the cabin originally came from a different vehicle and had been improved bit by bit along the way. Because I've got this small cabin with an interior length of 3 meters, I can afford to treat myself to this driver's cab size L. There's really enough space. I can store my camera equipment there at the back, a packed cooler, or just now there are 2 seats installed there. You'll be able to see that later. It's really very comfortable. I have a lot of space without making the vehicle unnecessarily long. That's an absolute benefit. When it comes to the tires, we've now gone through every type and every size suitable for the Steyr 12M18, starting with 14.5 R20, which are the original ones, followed by 365, 85 R20, which are a little bit larger, hardly any difference. We used 395, 85 R20 ones on our winter trip to Norway, which is a very interesting size. But the best for off-roaders are definitely 14.0 R20. Up to now we've had the Conti HTS fitted and new Nokian tires have been put on for the trip to South America. The vehicle won't be back in Europe for at least the next 10 years and we want to start off with new tires. Speaking of the range in this context, I decided on a 300-liter tank. That's enough for a range of around 1000 kilometers, which is more than sufficient. There's also an additional 20-liter canister for emergencies in case of miscalculations. A SEPA filter is mounted here at the front. It's certainly not the best place for it because of stones hitting it. Perhaps we'll put a cover in front of it, but what was important for me was that I could access it easily to clean it and didn't have to tip up the driver's cap to look at the condition of the fuel. Hoses are fitted for all 4 tires for the tire pressure system, which only works when parked. I have a bayonet system that I simply place on, like this, and I can then set the tire pressure centrally for all 4 tires. Although this vehicle is extremely suited for off-road use, you also have to be able to service it correctly, and because I'm so often traveling alone in it, I lowered the threshold so that I really can regularly adjust the tire pressure to make sure I don't unnecessarily get bogged anywhere. The cabin is relatively compact. It has a total height of 3.6 meters. That's a pretty good size for the Steyr with big tires. But the length of it is really quite short, which is why I set the cabin back a bit and was able to carve out a bit of space here for another laminated storage compartment. This one's used to store the table and chairs and the ladder, while the onboard electronics are installed on the other side. There's this saying that you need all-wheel drive to get bogged in places where others can't get to at all. With an extremely rugged off-road truck that weighs over 7 tons, I can really get into a whole lot of trouble if I get bogged and need help somewhere that others can't reach. Because I travel about a lot by myself, I've even installed 2 cable winches, one at the front and one at the rear, to really make sure that I can take care of myself in the majority of situations. That's the reason why I've cut out a bit of the bumper here. The electric cable winch sits here at the front inside the chassis and has a Dyneema rope. It doesn't weigh anything, and the winch alone can pull around 7.5 tons with deflection. That means that hopefully I won't have any problems pulling myself out of the mud. I also like to drive in the dark, and that's why I changed over to LED headlights so that I can see better. And that's the reason for the light bar that can really light up the road for more than 100 meters ahead. What is decisive, however, more important for traveling, is this simple plastic pane. As opposed to a mesh cover, it offers very reliable protection for the front headlights, and it won't let any stones through. I have to clean it now and again. At the moment there's a bit of dirt behind it, but if an LED headlight breaks, then it's really broken. I would have been able to get normal halogen headlights more cheaply. That's why it's twice as important to protect them. The roof rack is the highest point of the vehicle, and that means if I scrape here I can still get through, but I can be sure that the skylights and solar modules are protected. The second roof rack is up here at the front top. I don't have it there all the time, but on longer trips there's ample space between the parts. I have storage compartments on the left and the right. One funny detail is that they actually used to be on our small editorial pickup, but they fit here like they were made for it, and we use them to store the rescue equipment. For example, we have here the big tow rope, as experience has taught us that when the vehicle is stuck in the mud, it's always difficult to access either the right or left side, and that's why half of the rescue equipment is at the right and the other on the left, so I can get out of the door and exit it pretty quickly, irrespective of how deep I'm bogged. Here at the back is what I call the playground. The surfboards are up the top, there's a bike here. The most important thing is getting to it quickly. That's been my experience. That means that here you have to release one lashing strap and the bike is ready to go, which makes it much easier for me to actually use it. Of course, you definitely need a few decent sand ladders when it comes to the rescue equipment. They are essential for a truck. I have 2 that are 2 meters long, and this bracket is so that I can also take them with me again, even if they get a bit bent out of shape. Because one thing's for sure, as nice as they look when they are new, they won't stay like that for long. That's why this whole piece is a little bit longer, and if I have to, I can also put the bent sand ladder on it and tension them a bit to straighten them out somewhat. They're easy to get to when needed. I only have one lashing strap on each side, which means they are ready to go at a moment's notice.
Dementsprechend auch schnell griffbereit.
At the rear is the cable winch that was originally installed in the vehicle, and that I've been traveling with since 2013. I actually did think about diverting the cable to the front so that I could use it in both directions too, but that was more complicated than installing a second winch at the front. That's why this is only the winch for the rear and to lower the spare wheel, for example. 2 aluminium boxes have been installed here at the rear. They were also recycled from old parts that I had hanging around. The compartment on this side is where the replacement canister will be stored later, and a 60-liter water tank has been installed on the other side, which I can either use through the pressure system or simply using the ball valve.
Damit die Gewichtsverteilung des Fahrzeuges gut ist,
To make sure that there's good weight distribution for the vehicle, the diesel tank is on the passenger side and the other supplies are here on this side, namely the gas. 100 liters in the tank for heating and cooking. And there's a 140-liter tank of drinking water behind that in the tank, and I fill them up here through this inlet. We had to use a different battery case to make it fit. It was fitted here. I did have the batteries in the driver's cab for a while, but I didn't really like it there. I've also laminated here at the rear. And there's now space for a few starter batteries for the engine and a few batteries for the cable winches. They are charged using Steyr charge boosters. The best example to show the very high standard to which this vehicle was built, how robust it is the exhaust. It lasted 32 years. It only started to rust this spring and has now given up the ghost and been replaced by an exhaust system made of stainless steel with a corresponding tinny sound. Naturally, one of the main issues with a vehicle like this, and this is also the case for me, is that they need a lot of electricity to power a laptop, for the camera chargers, and also for when something goes wrong and the truck doesn't start because the starter batteries are empty. There are 3 options to generate electricity here: through the 400-watt solar system on the roof, the second via the charging converter from the light machine, and thirdly, as a backup if the sun doesn't shine for a longer period of time and you're not moving the vehicle, there's also a small petrol generator with which you can charge the batteries in a very short time. There's not actually very much that's been changed at all in the driver's cab. The decisive thing is noise insulation, noise insulation, noise insulation. There's now less than 70 dB when at full steam. That is a really comfortable level. This flap over the passageway to the back also contributes to this. It's not just a door but also an insulated ceiling. It cuts out a lot of noise. 2 seats have also been added here. They are children's seats from a VW Touran, the 3rd seating row. They are a perfect fit. There's generally a refrigerated box here when I'm on the trip and camera equipment on the other side. There are a few storage pockets here for small items, and I've built a console here at the front. There's already been a story about it in the Explorer, about how it works. It's actually very easy to do. And there's also a car radio installed here with the reverse camera. And here is an onboard monitor where I can check all the battery units I have in the vehicle. For example, I can see here 2.6 amps for the electricity charge. Here I can see that just 4.2 amps are being used. That means I have a good overview of the electricity consumption of the vehicle during the trip. A good driver's cab is generally an empty and tidy driver's cab. In my opinion, you need a few small items at hand, so I built this small storage shelf here. You can throw your wallet there and it stays put when you're off-road. There's a small USB charging station here for your mobile, and if you want to store small things like sunglasses, you can simply use rubber straps, and then they also have their own place. There you go. You can easily store maps underneath them. It's quick to make and doesn't cost anything.
A lot of practical details and very many working hours have been invested in Ursa Major. We will then introduce the interior of the Steyr in part 2, because after 6 years, the do-it-yourself cabin has also been given an extensive refit. Soon here at the Explorer.